Another human? Sergeant Kree's four eyes rolled in perfect synchronization, each pair expressing a different shade of disgust. The Vordak officer's chitinous exoskeleton clicked as he shifted his weight, studying the datapad with the enthusiasm of someone examining week-old food scraps. Yes, sir. Lieutenant Vell tried to keep the tremor out of his voice. The young Zolani's blue skin had turned a sickly shade of purple, a dead giveaway of his nervousness. Command insists we process him through standard training protocols. Standard protocols. Kree's mandibles clicked in what passed for bitter laughter among his species. The last Deathworlder we processed lasted exactly 3 days before he accidentally destroyed half the obstacle course. The one before that somehow managed to eat our emergency rations and complained they tasted bland. The training facility hummed with activity around them. Dozens of alien species moved through their morning routines, each following centuries of established military tradition. The Galactic Defense Corps had perfected their training methods over millennia, creating the finest soldiers the galaxy had ever seen. At least, that's what they told themselves. Where is this particular specimen of chaos? Kree asked, his voice dripping with a kind of sarcasm that could corrode metal. Waiting in Processing Base 7, sir. He's been there for approximately 6 hours. 6 hours? Kree's antennae twitched. Most species would have filed 17 different complaints by now. What's he doing? According to the guards, he's been doing something called push-ups. Continuously. Kree's expression shifted from annoyance to something approaching curiosity. In his 23 years of service, he'd never encountered a species that considered physical exertion a form of entertainment. Most recruits spent their waiting time reviewing study materials or meditating according to their species' customs. Let's go meet our new problem child, Kree muttered, his claws clicking against the floor as he walked. Processing Base 7 was a sterile chamber designed to accommodate the physical requirements of hundreds of different alien species. Environmental controls could adjust gravity, atmosphere composition, and temperature within seconds. It was a marvel of engineering, capable of making any being comfortable during their initial evaluation. The human sat on the floor, moving up and down in a rhythmic pattern that defied all logic. His dark hair was soaked with perspiration, and his breathing came in controlled bursts. Despite 6 hours of continuous exercise, he looked as if he could continue indefinitely. Cadet Marcus Chen, Kree announced, his voice echoing in the chamber. I am Sergeant Kree, your primary instructor. The human bounded to his feet with fluid grace, snapping into a perfect salute. Sergeant Kree, sir. Cadet Chun reporting for duty. At ease, Cadet. Kree studied the human with professional interest. Most new recruits displayed obvious signs of stress during their first encounter with alien instructors. Fear, confusion, or overwhelming curiosity were common reactions. Chen showed none of these. His dark eyes held steady confidence, and his posture suggested readiness rather than apprehension. Tell me, Chen, what do you know about Galactic Defense Corps training standards? Sir, I've reviewed the available materials. The Corps maintains the highest physical and mental standards in known space. The graduation rate across all species averages 12%. Correct. Kree's mandibles clicked approvingly. And what makes you think a Deathworlder can meet those standards? Chen's expression shifted slightly, the ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Sir, with respect, I think the question is whether your standards are ready for a Deathworlder. The silence that followed could have been cut with a vibroblade. Lieutenant Vell's skin had progressed from purple to a deep indigo, while Kree's four eyes focused on a human with laser intensity. Is that so? Kree's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Well then, Cadet, let's see what you're made of. The physical assessment chamber was a cathedral of controlled chaos. Holographic obstacles materialized and dissolved in endless combinations, creating challenges that pushed the limits of physics and imagination. Gravity wells, energy barriers, and temporal distortions turned simple movement into an art form requiring perfect timing and spatial awareness. Standard assessment protocol, Kree announced, his claws dancing across a control panel. You'll navigate through 15 obstacle configurations. Each one increases in difficulty. The galactic record is held by a Corvan warrior who completed 12 configurations in 4 hours and 17 minutes. What happened to the other 3 configurations, sir? They're considered theoretically impossible. The mathematics don't work out for any known species. Chen nodded, stretching his arms above his head in a casual motion that somehow managed to look both relaxed and predatory. Understood, sir. Should I start now? Whenever you're ready, Cadet. The first configuration was Child's Play by galactic standards, a series of platforms suspended over a pit of harmless but unpleasant energy. Most species required careful planning and precise timing to navigate successfully. Chen launched himself forward without hesitation, his movements flowing like liquid mercury. He cleared the entire section in 37 seconds, a time that would have been respectable for a seasoned veteran. Interesting, Kree murmured, his fingers hovering over controls. Configuration 2. The second challenge introduced rotating gravity fields that shifted orientation every few seconds. Recruits typically spent several minutes studying the pattern before attempting navigation. Chen didn't pause. He seemed to read the gravitational changes instinctively, using them to accelerate his movement rather than fighting against them. By the 5th configuration, a crowd had gathered. Word spread through the training facility like wildfire. A human was not merely completing the standard assessment. He was demolishing it. His times weren't just good. They were unprecedented. "This is impossible," whispered Instructor Zara, a Thurian whose species held the previous speed records for 6 different configurations. "He's not even breathing hard." "Humans are from a death world," Vel replied, his voice filled with something approaching awe. "Maybe the stories are true." "What stories?" Kree demanded, never taking his eyes off the human who was currently defying 3 different laws of physics simultaneously. "The ones that say death worlds don't just create survivors. They create apex predators." Configuration 8 required navigating through a maze of energy barriers while dodging autonomous defense drones programmed to mimic combat conditions. The challenge was designed to test tactical thinking under pressure. Most candidates spent considerable time analyzing drone movement patterns and energy barrier cycles. Chen dove into the maze like a hunter who had spotted prey. His movements were economical, purposeful, and utterly without wasted motion. He didn't avoid the drones so much as he anticipated their positions, flowing through spaces that wouldn't exist for another few seconds. The energy barriers seemed to part around him like curtains. "How is he doing that?" Kree's voice cracked slightly. "Sir, I think he's not just reacting to the obstacles. He's predicting them." Configuration 12 had never been completed by any species. It required simultaneous navigation through temporal distortions, gravity wells, and hostile energy fields while maintaining forward momentum. The mathematics suggested it required reaction times faster than neural impulses and spatial awareness beyond the theoretical maximum for organic beings. Chen stood at the starting line, studying the chaotic display ahead. For the first time since entering the chamber, he looked thoughtful rather than confident. "Having second thoughts, Cadet?" Kree asked, though his tone lacked its earlier sarcasm. "No, sir. Just appreciating the engineering. This is really well designed. It's designed to be impossible. That's what makes it interesting." Chen launched himself into the configuration with the same fluid grace he'd shown throughout the assessment. But this time, something different happened. He didn't just navigate through the obstacles. He seemed to dance with them, using the temporal distortions to slow his perception of time while accelerating his physical responses. The gravity wells became stepping stones rather than barriers. The energy fields parted around him like he was somehow in harmony with their fluctuations. He completed Configuration 12 in 3 minutes and 42 seconds. The assessment chamber fell silent, except for the hum of machinery. Every alien in the room stared at readouts that shouldn't have been possible. Chen walked calmly back to the starting position, barely breathing hard. "Configurations 13 through 15, sir?" Kree's mandibles clicked involuntarily. No one had ever asked to attempt the theoretical impossibilities. No one had ever been in a position to ask. "Chen, those configurations exist purely as mathematical exercises. They're not meant to be completed." "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted. The way I see it, you've got 3 choices. You can activate the next configuration and see what happens. You can declare this assessment complete and move on to the next phase of training. Or you can stand there trying to figure out how a human just broke your entire scoring system. The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Finally, Kree's claws moved across the control panel with deliberate precision. Configuration 13 Cadet. Try not to break anything expensive. Configuration 13 was chaos given form. The chamber filled with overlapping hazards that violated several fundamental laws of physics. Temporal loops created paradoxes that could trap a being in endless recursive cycles. Gravity reversed, inverted, and twisted in patterns that should have torn apart any organic matter. Energy fields phased in and out of existence in frequencies that could destabilize molecular bonds. Chen studied the maelstrom for exactly 30 seconds. Sir, question about the rules. What rules? Are there any? Kree's expression suggested he was beginning to understand something profound and terrifying about Deathworlders. No, Cadet, there are no rules. Good. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. Chen didn't navigate through Configuration 13. He conquered it. He used the temporal loops to create multiple versions of himself, each one solving a different aspect of the challenge simultaneously. He rode the gravity distortions like a surfer riding waves. He somehow convinced the energy fields to work in harmony rather than opposition. He completed Configuration 13 in 1 minute and 57 seconds. The assessment chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting in 17 different languages, all expressing variations of disbelief and amazement. Kree stood frozen, staring at displays that showed readings he'd never seen before. Sir, Chen's voice cut through the noise. Configuration 14? Chen. Kree's voice was barely above a whisper. What are you? The human smile was sharp enough to cut steel. Sir, I'm just a cadet trying to graduate. Should I continue? Kree looked at the control panel, then at the crowd of instructors and cadets who had gathered to witness the impossible. His four eyes met Chen's too, and in that moment, he understood something that would change everything about how the Galactic Defense Corps viewed humans. Configuration 14 Cadet. And Chen. Yes, sir? Try not to make the rest of us look too incompetent. Chen's laughter filled the chamber, a sound that somehow managed to be both reassuring and absolutely terrifying. Sir, I make no promises. The impossible standard. Configuration 14 materialized around Chen, like a living nightmare designed by a committee of sadistic physicists. The chamber transformed into a three-dimensional maze where up and down became meaningless concepts. Plasma storms raged through corridors that folded in on themselves. Miniature black holes created gravitational anomalies that could crush a starship, while quantum fluctuations made solid surfaces phase in and out of existence. This configuration has killed 3 holographic simulations, Kree announced, his voice carrying across the now-silent observation deck. The computer models suggest survival probability approaches 0. Chen nodded thoughtfully, rolling his shoulders in what looked like a warm-up routine. Sir, quick question. Has anyone ever tried treating this as a puzzle instead of an obstacle course? What do you mean? Well, sir, you've got quantum fluctuations, gravitational anomalies, and plasma storms all operating on different physics principles. But they're all happening in the same space. That suggests they're interconnected somehow. Kree's mandibles clicked uncertainly. In 23 years of service, he'd never heard anyone describe Configuration 14 as a puzzle. It was a death trap, pure and simple. Cadet, you're suggesting these hazards are designed to work together? Sir, I'm suggesting that maybe the solution isn't to avoid them. Maybe the solution is to make them work for me instead of against me. The observation deck filled with nervous chittering and whispered conversations in dozens of languages. Lieutenant Vell leaned closer to his commanding officer, his blue skin now completely purple with stress. Sir, should we perhaps reconsider? If something happens to him, the diplomatic implications could be severe. The diplomatic implications will be severe if we don't let him try, Kree replied grimly. Humans have a reputation for taking offense when people doubt their capabilities. Chen stepped to the starting line, his posture relaxed but alert. Ready when you are, sir. Configuration 14 is now active. Good luck, Cadet. What followed challenged every assumption about physics, common sense, and the fundamental nature of reality itself. Chen didn't enter the configuration so much as he merged with it. He used the quantum fluctuations to phase through solid barriers, timing his movements to coincide with the probability waves that determined when surfaces would exist. The plasma storms became his navigation system, their electromagnetic signatures creating a three-dimensional map of the maze's structure. But it was his interaction with the miniature black holes that truly left the observers speechless. Instead of avoiding the gravitational anomalies, Chen used them as acceleration points. He would approach each singularity at precisely the right angle and velocity to use its gravity, well as a slingshot, launching himself through the maze at speeds that should have liquefied his internal organs. How is he surviving those G-forces? Instructor Zara whispered, her voice filled with professional amazement. Deathworld physiology, someone replied. Their species evolved under extreme conditions. What kills us just makes them stronger. That's not physiology, Kree said quietly, his four eyes tracking Chen's impossible progress. That's something else entirely. Chen completed Configuration 14 in 43 seconds. The silence that followed was profound enough to make the vacuum of space seem noisy. Every alien in the observation deck stared at displays showing readings that violated fundamental laws of physics. Chen walked calmly back to the starting position, breathing easily despite having just accomplished something that theoretical models suggested was impossible. Sir? Configuration 15. Kree's claws trembled slightly as they hovered over the control panel. Configuration 15 wasn't just impossible, it was conceptually impossible. The mathematics required to describe it used imaginary numbers and theoretical particles that might not exist. It was less of a challenge and more of an abstract thought experiment about the nature of reality itself. Chen, Configuration 15 doesn't actually exist in any meaningful sense. It's a mathematical construct that describes theoretical limits of possibility. Sir, with respect, I just navigated through a maze of miniature black holes. I'm pretty sure I can handle some theoretical mathematics. The challenge requires simultaneous existence in multiple dimensions while maintaining causal consistency across parallel timelines. It's not just impossible, it's paradoxical. Chen grinned, an expression that somehow managed to be both reassuring and absolutely terrifying. Sir, you say that like it's a bad thing. The control panel seemed to resist as Kree's claws moved across its surface. Warning lights flashed in sequences that indicated the system was being asked to create something that shouldn't exist. The chamber's environmental controls strained against fundamental laws of physics, creating a reality that existed in a state of controlled impossibility. Configuration 15 was indescribable. It wasn't just a challenge, it was an affront to the natural order of the universe. The chamber became a space where multiple timelines intersected, where cause and effect became negotiable concepts, and where the very notion of objective reality became a matter of perspective. Chen studied the chaos with the expression of someone examining an interesting puzzle. Sir, I'm going to need to break a few more laws of physics for this one. How many more? All of them. What happened next would be classified at the highest levels of galactic security, for the simple reason that no one wanted to admit it had actually occurred. Chen didn't navigate through Configuration 15. He transcended it. He somehow convinced the universe that he existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously while maintaining perfect causal consistency across parallel timelines. He completed Configuration 15 in -7 seconds. The readout showed he had finished the challenge before he started it, creating a temporal paradox that should have unraveled the fabric of space-time itself. Instead, the universe seemed to shrug and accept that humans were apparently exempt from certain fundamental laws of physics. That's not possible, Vel whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of machinery. None of this is possible, Kree replied, his mandibles clicking in what might have been laughter or hysteria. But it's happening anyway. Chen walked back to the starting position, completely unaffected by having just violated causality itself. Sir, that was fun. What's next? Next. Kree's voice cracked. Chen, you just broke the universe. There is no next. Sir, with respect, the universe seems fine. A little confused, maybe, but fine. the observation deck erupted in pandemonium. Aliens were shouting in languages that didn't have words for what they'd just witnessed. Emergency protocols activated as the facility's computers tried to process readings that shouldn't exist. Warning klaxons wailed as safety systems attempted to determine if reality was still functioning properly. Through it all, Chen stood calmly at attention, waiting for his next orders. "Sir," his voice cut through the chaos with remarkable clarity. "Should I report to the next phase of training?" Kree stared at the human, his 4 eyes reflecting a mixture of terror and admiration. "Chun, there is no next phase of training. You just redefine what training means." "Sir, I'm just trying to graduate. Are there any other assessments I need to complete?" "Cadet Chun." Kree's voice carried the weight of authority earned through decades of service. "You are hereby promoted to the rank of instructor, effective immediately." "Sir, I haven't even started basic training yet." "You've just completed training that doesn't exist and solved problems that have no solutions. I think we can waive the basic requirements." Chen's expression shifted to something approaching embarrassment. "Sir, I appreciate the confidence, but I'm really just here to learn. I don't know anything about military protocols or leadership principles. You just demonstrated that our entire understanding of limits and possibilities is fundamentally flawed. You've shown that the word impossible is merely a suggestion rather than a fact. What more do you need to know?" The chaos in the observation deck gradually subsided as the implications of what they'd witnessed began to sink in. This wasn't just about one exceptional human. This was about the fundamental nature of what it meant to be human, in a galaxy full of species that had accepted certain limitations as absolute truth. "Sir, if I may ask, what happens now?" Kree's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Now, Chun, we figure out how to train the rest of the galaxy's military forces to keep up with humans." "Sir, I don't think that's possible. Neither was what you just did. Yet here we are." Chen nodded slowly, his expression growing serious. "Sir, there's something you should know. I'm not exceptional by human standards. I'm average, maybe slightly below average." The silence that followed was absolute. Every alien in the observation deck stared at the human, who had just casually mentioned that his reality-breaking performance was subpar for his species. "Chun," Kree said carefully, "how many humans are in the Defense Corps?" "Sir, I'm the first, but Earth has applied for full membership. If approved, we're planning to send about 10,000 volunteers for the next recruitment cycle." Kree's claws clicked against the control panel with the nervous rhythm of someone calculating the end of the world. 10,000 humans, all performing at your level or higher. "Sir, I'm really not that impressive. My cousin Jake, now he's something special. He once arm wrestled a hydraulic press and won." "Your cousin arm wrestled a machine?" "Sir, to be fair, the machine started it." Lieutenant Vell made a sound that might have been laughter or a mental breakdown. "Sir, what are we going to do?" Kree studied the human, who had just casually mentioned that his reality-defined performance was considered mediocre by his species standards. In 23 years of service, he'd never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with proper training, discipline, and tactical thinking. This was different. This was the moment when the galaxy realized that humans didn't just come from a death world. They came from a world that had produced apex predators so terrifying that they considered breaking the laws of physics to be a form of light exercise. "Vel, send a message to Galactic Command. Tell them we need to completely restructure our training programs." "Sir, what should I tell them about the new requirements?" Kree looked at Chun, who was still standing patiently at attention despite having just redefined the nature of reality itself. "Tell them we need to prepare for the impossible. And then tell them to prepare for something much worse." "Sir, what's worse than impossible?" 10,000 humans who think impossible is just another word for Tuesday." Chen's laughter filled the chamber, a sound that somehow managed to be both reassuring and absolutely terrifying. "Sir, you're going to love meeting my cousin Jake." As the implications of humanity's arrival in the galactic community began to sink in, one thing became crystal clear. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place. Whether that was good or bad remained to be seen, but one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same again.